Hello everybody, how are you? So this is part 3 of my 5-day series this week where I'm talking about cleansing, and I'm talking about why you need to cleanse, the importance of cleansing, and just taking you through the number one thing I would do for each organ. So on Monday we talked about the liver, and we talked about what I would do for the liver, and that is drinking dandelion tea. We also talked about the lymphatics, and the number one thing I would do for the liver, for the lymphatics, which is castor oil packs. And today we're talking about the gallbladder. Now with the castor oil packs, I'm going to do a separate live on that because I know a few of you have asked about how to do the castor oil packs and how I do them. So when I do mine tomorrow, I will try and record it. I'm not sure that'll be a nice live though, because I have to, yeah, that won't be so great. You don't want to see me rubbing oil onto my belly and then adding and then having a heat pack, so that's not really, but I'll show you the gist of it. So today we're talking about gallbladder. The gallbladder is so important, and I know I say this about every single thing I talk about, but what I get angry about, what makes my blood boil, is when the gallbladder is just not thought about as a real organ. We don't need it, and there are a lot of specialists out there, and a lot of who are wonderful, but they don't understand, or they don't, you know, they something happens to the gallbladder and straight away it's for surgery, or we don't need that. But it really does impact our health, and it impacts the rest of us. Now, I want to talk about the connection of the gallbladder to the liver. I also want to talk about the connection of the gallbladder to estrogen dominance, the gallbladder to things like hysterectomies, the gallbladder to endometriosis. There is a connection. I also want to talk about the connection between the gallbladder and methylation issues like MTHFR. And then I'm going to talk about its function a little bit. Now, the gallbladder is basically the little storage system for bile. Bile is this wonderful liquid, and I talked about this yesterday, this wonderful liquid that gets excreted from your liver. Pew, pew, it shoots it out, pew, pew, like this. And then your gallbladder stores it. So the gallbladder stores it. And what it does is the gallbladder stores it, and then it excretes it. And it excretes it when it thinks it needs to be excreted, and it excretes it into the small intestine. Bile is super alkaline, so what the bile does is it makes the small intestine the perfect environment for lactobacilli bacteria to go down and travel through to the large intestine. The alkalization helps to process and assimilate nutrients down there. The alkalization kills off Helicobacter H. pylori. H. pylori loves acidic environment. So if your gallbladder is working really well, it's pumping that bile into the small intestine, and it's into the duodenum, and it's helping to kill off that H. pylori. So it's got these wonderful functions. Now, within that bile, we've got bile salts. It consists of electrolytes. It consists of bilirubin. It's got fats in. It emulsifies fats, but it also breaks down toxins, and it helps to excrete hormones. So if we're estrogen dominant, our gallbladder will help to, our bile, will help to remove that kind of estrogen from the body. And that is why one of the things that I find is when women are really estrogen dominant, or they've been on the oral contraceptive pill, they actually end up getting things like gallbladder stones, sluggish bile, and they have problems there because the detoxification system finds it so hard to deal with all the toxins. The bile gets really dehydrated and thick, and then you get pain, it stops detoxing, all of these kind of things happen. So it's really important, if you've got a gallbladder, to look after it. And second to that, if you haven't got a gallbladder, it's not the end of the world, but if you haven't got a gallbladder, you need to understand the reason you had your gallbladder removed is probably the reason you need to continue to look after yourself. So you kind of pretend you've got a gallbladder, and you do everything that you would do if you had a gallbladder. So, for example, dandelion tea is wonderful at supporting bile, keeping yourself hydrated so you don't get dehydrated. Because when you don't have electrolytes and when you don't have bile salts, the the bile can get really dehydrated and thick, and the same with your liver. So if you haven't got your gallbladder, you want to be stimulating the liver to secrete more bile. So you just need to be making sure that if you have got one, you look after it, and if you don't have one, then you really look after the liver. Things that can affect the gallbladder. So people with MTHFR, I find, have more sluggish gallbladders. People who estrogen dominant, have hormone imbalance, and then of course taking medications, so taking the oral contraceptive pill or medications where the body has to break it down and excrete it through the bile. So anything where your bile is involved in excreting it, that has a big impact on it. Fat also. So if you're on a keto diet or you're having a really, really high fat diet, you might find that your gallbladder is having to do more work because it's actually having to pump out and kind of release the bile to help break down the fats. It breaks down the fats, and then the fats can get reabsorbed into the blood supply and then kind of processed and utilized that way. They can either be taken to where they need to be taken, or they can be excreted in the body. So that's really the gist of it when it comes to the bile and what else it does. If you've actually, this is, sorry, I'm going all over the place. It's been a long day today. Afternoon ones, often not. So let's talk about bacteria and let's talk about the small intestine. It's really common. Do you know what? There's a connection between people with MTHFR. Normally have what's called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. Now, a lot of this is to do with the fact that the small intestine is just not getting cleaned appropriately. It is part of the bile's job to clean that small intestine, release the bile into the small intestine, clean the small intestine, alkalize the small intestine. The bile then takes the bacteria that shouldn't be there in the small intestine and makes it travel through the bowel and then out through the feces, or some might be reabsorbed and then out excreted through the kidneys. So can you see how important the small intestine is? This is really important if you're doing, say, gut cleanses, and I'm going to be talking about the gut a little bit more tomorrow, but if you're doing sort of gut cleanses, or you're doing these antimicrobial cleanses, or you're even taking antibiotics, and it's affecting the small intestine, you need to be looking after your gallbladder, and you need to be making sure that your gallbladder's pumping out and dumping bile into the small intestine on a regular basis so it can keep it nice and clean, and it can actually keep it nice and alkalized. That's really, really important. So the bile in the gallbladder breaks down fatty acids. Here's another thing. The bile in the gallbladder actually helps vitamin D to be delivered and to be synthesized. So if your gallbladder is not working effectively, you might find that you've got low vitamin D as well. The bile in the gallbladder actually helps to regulate your cholesterol, so your HDL versus your LDL. It helps to keep those in balance. So if you've got very, very high LDL, again, is there something going on with your gallbladder? Is there something going on with your bile? It detoxes, again, the bile helps to remove heavy metals. It helps to remove bacteria, it helps to remove viruses, and it helps to remove metabolites of hormones as well. So it's very, very important, the gallbladder is, to prevent cancer as well, to prevent estrogen-dominant cancers. And if you have an estrogen-dominant cancer, you want to be making sure that you are really supporting your gallbladder, because it's going to be going through doing a lot of work, and it's going to be detoxing a hell of a lot more. So doing that as well. And it also helps to remove and support and regulate bilirubin as well. So that's why some people in their gallbladders are going a little bit funny, they're not working as properly, the bile might be building up, or the bile is going sludgy, or stones are forming. Some people get the yellow sclera, which is the yellow whites of the eyes, and that can be that bilirubin buildup. My cat years ago, she actually drank some coconut milk. I left a tin of coconut milk out on the kitchen top bench, and she drank a little bit of that, and it was too fatty for her, for the cat, and that would have blocked her gallbladder. Her eyes went totally yellow, and she just vomited. She did projectile vomiting all over everywhere, all over the walls, and then she wouldn't eat for like a day. I had to take her to the hospital, and they had to keep her in and give her electrolytes and all of that kind of thing. But that's just to show that if the gallbladder can't cope, even with a lot of fat, you can see how you can get that yellowing of the eyes. So that happened with her. So with us, we need to be making sure our gallbladder is working really well, especially when we're having high fat diets. Okay, to look after our gallbladder, we need to make sure that we're looking after the bile and we're getting that production of bile, okay? So we need to give the bile its food. So bile is made up of electrolytes, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and sodium. So we need those either in our diets from lots of raw vegetables, lots of soups, veggie broth, bone broth, all of those kind of things help to make our bile. So don't neglect those. You know, lemon and water is full of potassium. Celery juice has a lot of sodium, or celery sticks. You don't necessarily have to have just the juice. Having the vegetables as well is a good way to get those electrolytes in. It's made up of salts, so I've already talked about the main salts, but this is why we need salts in our diet. So again, electrolytes are slightly different than salt. So with salts, I'm thinking of sodium chloride, potassium chloride, so all the chlorides. So actually having table salt and a little bit of water is really good as well. Also, there are salts that you can buy. So you can buy bile salts, but you can also buy, Blackmores do celluloids, tissue celluloids. They're not vegan, they've got lactose in, but they're so fantastic. They're made of potassium chloride, magnesium phosphate, magnesium chloride, sodium chloride, and they're for different things. And there's one called PCIP, potassium chloride and iron phosphate, because of course if your gallbladder is not working properly, you're also going to have inhibition of iron absorption as well. So taking these salts and having a chewing on one of these salts, tissue salts, before eating also helps to stimulate the liver and the gallbladder, and then it helps to get nutrients out of that meal. And of course fats. So if you're having a complete no-fat diet, and I just had an aha moment, think about all of the, maybe I've said this before, but think about the craze. When was it? It's the 80s or the 90s? That low-fat diet craze, completely low-fat, no fat, lots of sugar. And there's an increasing number of women from that era, that diet, that have had to have their gallbladders removed and also gone on to have hysterectomies as well. You'll see the connection between those two things. It's quite fascinating. So looking after your gallbladder, giving it that raw ingredients is definitely really important when it comes to your gallbladder. And also giving it amino acids. So taurine is very good for the liver, and also glycine is very good for the liver. Collagen protein has glycine in actually, and that's quite a relaxing amino acid. So taurine and glycine are both. Choline is also very good as well. You can get choline from things like eggs, fish eggs, also globe artichoke as well has choline in. So there are sources of choline. So really you need to make sure you're having the raw ingredients, and then you're giving the bile things that it can, you're giving your gallbladder things that sort of create the bile. Then thirdly, and I'll go into this in a minute, you want to be taking things that stimulate the bile. So raw food for the bile, fish eggs are really good because it's got the choline. Krill oil is amazing. Krill oil is so anti-inflammatory and it's wonderful. Egg yolks are really good. So if you eat eggs, what I tend to do, and I love this, is I make a fatty porridge, and I absolutely love this porridge. And so you soak the porridge overnight, so you kind of ferment it, and then what you do is you can cook it up slightly in a little bit of almond milk or coconut milk, whatever you like. And then what I do is I mix, once I've cooked it, I pop it in the bowl and I mix one egg yolk through it. And it creates this most amazing meal that just keeps me filled for absolutely hours. Globe artichoke is one of the best things for the liver. So you can either eat the artichoke hearts, or you can get like a tincture, you know, a herbal tincture or tablets. And globe artichoke is just, it's fantastic. Really supports, I think it's mainly the choline in the globe artichoke, but it really supports the gallbladder and also supports the liver, but specific. Organ meats again are good for the gallbladder, so you can take desiccated liver capsules or eat organ meats if you want to do that. Electrolytes. Bicarb of soda is an interesting one. Bicarb also helps to support the gallbladder as well. So you would just have a little bit in your water. So what I do some days, I don't do it every day, is I have my litre bottle of water and I might put like half a teaspoon of bicarb in there just to give it a little bit of bicarb, but it's not too much, and I'll drink that. And I do that a couple of times a week. I really enjoy doing that, and I find that's quite helpful as well. And then lemon and water, and also apple cider vinegar. So 10 mils of apple cider vinegar, which is acetic acid, that actually helps to thin out. The acetic acid and the citric acid in the lemon, they help to thin out the bile in the gallbladder. So those are all the things you can give to support the bile, to make sure you've got good bile production. But another thing is bitter things. Now I see Lucy's talked about rocket before meals. Yeah, bitter things. So bitter things before eating. The bitter actually helps to stimulate. So then you get that bile release from the liver, and then you can also get that release from the gallbladder as well. So rocket, endive, pith from your citrus fruits. What else? All the bitter, I'm having a mind blank, I think. So all the bitter vegetables, I said the endive already, the rocket. I can't remember now. I can't remember the kohlrabi, the leafy greens, the bitter leafy greens. All of those bitter vegetables support your gallbladder, and to have them before eating as well. And then the bitter liquid, so green tea is good, dandelion tea is good. I think that's fantastic. But if it comes to one thing, I would do for the gallbladder, so just the one thing, is watercress bitter? Yes, it is. Watercress is definitely amazing. Watercress is fantastic. So watercress is one of the most nutrient-dense, beautiful things, and it is bitter and it's fantastic for the liver, and it's got lots of potassium in as well, so it's fantastic. I love that. If there was one thing I would do for the gallbladder, so yesterday I said the one thing for the liver would be dandelion tea. The day before, the one thing for the lymphatics. Today, the one thing I would do for my gallbladder would be to hydrate with electrolytes. Hydrating with electrolytes, I think, is one of the most important things. When we get dehydrated with electrolytes, the bile can really go dry and sticky and kind of shrivel up, and that's when all the toxins get stuck in the bile in the gallbladder, and that's when we create problems. So with hydration, I mean when you're having liquid, not just having water, so not just having 2 or 3 liters of water a day, but making sure it's electrolyte water, it's hydrating you, you're absorbing it, you know. If it's just water, some people it can be going straight through, and if you've got adrenal issues and high cortisol, it's very unlikely that you're absorbing the water. It just goes straight through and you remain thirsty. So hydrating with vegetable soups, bone broth, veggie broth, a litre of water with 2 heaped teaspoons of barley grass greens in, or half a lemon in warm water, or a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar in water, or a squeeze. I love fresh orange. I squeeze 1 fresh orange into a big glass of water and I'll sip on that, and that's beautiful, and you absorb that. There's so much potassium in fresh orange, and diluting it creates that electrolyte that your body can absorb. So that would be my one thing. That would be my one thing for the gallbladder. It would be hydration, but electrolyte kind of hydration. I had a client yesterday talking to me about how he feels so much better now. He's having boiled water. He boils the water, but he doesn't drink it warm. He keeps it in the fridge, and he said he feels amazing. Anyway, I actually haven't looked into that and why that would be, but that's quite fascinating. He said he's had so much energy since boiling the water, so I'm going to look into that a little bit more. But yeah, having that nice electrolytes of the water. And secondly, if you know you've got gallbladder problems, or you get that gallbladder pain, or you've got lots of moles over your body. Look, I've got lots of moles, and moles are a sign of the gallbladder struggling and kind of estrogen dominance. So it is that sign. It's that sign of where they're trying to come out. And I do wonder, there's one there I had that was darker, and I took something and that's actually started to go, which was interesting. So yes, so moles can be a sign you've got that darkness coming through, and definitely estrogen dominance there. So what was I saying? Yeah, hydration. Oh yeah, if you know you've got gallbladder issues, globe artichoke is one of the best herbs for your gallbladder, and even eating globe artichokes, that's the second thing on top of the hydration. So I just cheated there. I hope you found that helpful. So don't forget, you can go back and you can have a look at my lymphatic. You can go back and you can have a look at my liver. And today was gallbladder, and tomorrow we're going to do digestion. So hope you enjoyed that, everybody. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget, if you've got any questions, just pop them below, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.